Well, the year 2017 is over, which means that it was yet another year that was mostly spent playing video games. It's a thing to do. And while I've played some excellent games this year, I have also played some that were the polar opposite. So, for fun, I'll be listing the games that I've played in 2017 from worst to best. Just a heads up, these are just the games that I've played, and I've missed out on a few games this year, such as Resident Evil 7, Assassin's Creed Origins, any game on the Nintendo Switch, and I played the beta for Call of Duty World War II. It was Call of Duty. So, without further ado, let's look at the worst game I have played this year with... Looking back at this game, there is a lot that I have to be upset about. The insulting handwave of everything that happened in the previous entries, the atrocious facial animations, the massive amount of bugs, the dangling of keys in front of my face by reminding me of everything that made the original series great, without actually delivering on any of it, the transitions... How do you f*** up transitions? But no. In the end, it was actually one simple element that made this game the worst of the year. Simply put, it's forgettable. I'm not even kidding, I completely forgot that this game came out in this year until I started writing up this video. The characters were bland, the story was decent but nothing special, the gameplay worked well enough, but overall I was just so bored. The tedious missions and side missions did little to help the boredom at all, and I had to force myself to keep playing just so I could justify my review. But honestly, the only real outrage I held towards this game was the fact that this was the end result after 5 years and a $40 million budget. A good game will live in spirit. A horrible game will live in infamy. But a bland game will die on arrival. And as far as I'm concerned, the Mass Effect series of games is conclusively dead. Commander Shepard died for nothing. Alright, so let's move on to a slightly less horrible game with... Okay, so this video took me by surprise for two reasons. Firstly, because I was not expecting this review to get anywhere near the amount of views that it did. But second, I really did not expect the amount of people that would get bent out of shape over this video. Now I know that sometimes when someone criticizes a game that people like, those people will take that personally. I get that. That being said, I would also like to point out that at no point in my video did I say a word about anyone who liked this game. Hey, if you enjoyed this game, I'm happy for you. Heck, one of my good friends had a great time playing Mass Effect Andromeda. However, I would like to make one thing perfectly clear. To all of the people in the comments section, through your incredible interpretations of the English language, who went out of your way to call me a scrub, pleb, loser, bitch, asshole, dick, liar, failure, jealous, and an SJW, yes, really, I would just like to point one thing out. Not a single one of you gave any reason as to why this game was any good. In fact, the best and most common defense that anyone gave was simply saying, well, I didn't think it was that bad. Now, that's interesting wording. Did you mean that figuratively, as in you liked it and disagree with me? Or did you mean that literally, meaning you know it's bad, but didn't think it was as bad as I did? Look, I'm not even gonna bother repeating myself as to all of the problems with this game. In fact, the only reason that this ranks higher than Mass Effect Andromeda is the fact that Andromeda had 5 years and a massive budget. That's it. I am so damn sick and tired of publishers rushing games out year after year and charging $60 like it's some sort of amazing product. Honestly, I'm willing to bet that some people didn't see why I was so upset about this, because they've grown up expecting developers and publishers to screw them over. I am not playing another 2K sports game, and if they pull this shit with Red Dead 2, I'm done doing business with them altogether. Before I move on, I would just like to make a special shout out to those people, comments or otherwise, who told me that I should expect new games from major publishers to be buggy, unpolished, unfinished, and full of microtransactions. Furthermore, it is somehow my fault for not expecting this. No. I should expect a product that works. I cannot stand this defeatist attitude of people excusing bullshit by saying, well, that's just the way it is. I know that's the way it is. I bought the damn game. That doesn't make it okay. To the people who do hold this attitude, you are not part of the problem, you are the problem. Rant over. Okay, now to drop my blood pressure, let's move on to a better game with... You know, I feel like I enjoyed this game much more than some others did. This charming, colorful, and extremely faithful throwback to old-school 3D platformers was a delightful experience. But it seems that the major problem with this game was that it was too faithful to old-school platformers. The major criticism that I had heard before playing this game came from people saying that it was basically just Banjo-Kazooie. And my initial thoughts were, well, duh, it's made by most of the same team, and it's a 3D platformer with one character on the ground and another for the air. Of course it's similar. Then I played it. Then I understood. This game isn't similar to Banjo-Kazooie. It basically is Banjo-Kazooie. I'm talking quizzes to progress, collecting items to unlock new levels, transforming into inanimate objects, a villain that mocks you in the hub, although this time the taunts don't rhyme. I mean, even the flaws in those games are here, such as occasionally slippery platforming, and camera angles that lock into awkward positions. But despite all of that, I really couldn't bring myself to dislike this game. It was so refreshing to play a 3D platformer with goofy characters, cheesy self-aware writing, and collecting meaningless objects to progress. Yes, most of my appreciation for this game comes from nostalgia, but hey, that seems to be the selling point of the game anyway. So, while not amazing, the nostalgia, charm, and bright and flashy colors did make for one memorable experience. Moving right along. This game is absolute garbage. I love it. An Arma 2 mod that creates a 100-player battle royale on a Soviet-era island with modern/World War I era weapons, awful vehicles, artillery that gives Verdun a run for its money, sweet coats, glitches for days, and the most cancerous voice chat I've possibly ever heard. Yeah, this game being a beta for most of the year did make it a bit rough around the edges. In fact, there was a solid 3 weeks of play where I couldn't get into a single match without someone cheating. But really, this game is just a ton of fun. I love getting into matches with my friends and deleting kids who think they can get the drop on us. I love the frantic scavenging as you try to acquire the best weapons before anyone else gets the drop on you. But mostly I love goofing around and sending your vehicles flying. Whee! However, once you're on your own, this game becomes terrifying. I get so jumpy when I know that I'm in a small area with 9 other players, and I see no one. Then, once the inevitable shots do ring out, that's when I begin panicking. And then I lose. but those few moments when you do get your eye dialed in and manage to hold your own until the final circle closes are absolutely intense. Then, before you know it, it's winner winner chicken dinner. So hopefully this game will get better optimized with time, fully add vaulting, and give us those crispy new maps. Delicious maps. Almost as delicious as chicken dinner. Up next, here's a game series that I never thought would be close to making my favorites list, with... Really, Sega? Really? You need to outsource Sonic games to other developers in order to make a halfway decent title? Okay, bad example. But seriously, this title put together by Sonic fan game developer Christian Whitehead is absolutely amazing. While somewhat lacking originality, Sonic Mania perfectly encapsulates just what made Sonic games fun to begin with. I don't need convoluted stories, cheesy voice acting, or edgy music. Just give me solid platforming, a memorable soundtrack, wonderfully designed stages, and a blue hedgehog going to the right at supersonic speeds. This ain't rocket science. Gripes with the Sonic franchise aside, Sonic Mania has some incredibly designed stages, a wonderful OST, smooth and responsive gameplay, and excellent throwbacks to the great Sonic games of the past. In all honesty, if this game had absolutely nothing to do with Sonic and couldn't rely on nostalgia, it would still be one of the best platformers of the year. I still haven't played Sonic Forces, and at this point I am terrified to do so, but at the very least I can rest assured that at least someone can make a great Sonic game around here. And now, for a game that made the list at the very last second. Well, my soul hurts, how are you today? I absolutely loved Life is Strange, so I was naturally interested in seeing how this prequel would play out. This time around, you followed the relationship between Chloe Price from the first season and Rachel Amber, who was technically in the first season. It's always tricky creating a prequel, and it's especially problematic when the main character doesn't have the reality-warping powers as the original protagonist. So, how do you get around this? Lesbians. Sorry, I mean... character development? There we go. In all seriousness though, what makes this such a solid follow-up to the original is really its fantastic writing and characterization of everyone involved. It is so heartwarming to see the relationship between Chloe and Rachel blossom, especially after knowing how hard Chloe had taken the death of her father. Seeing these two connect and plan to leave Arcadia Bay for good is nostalgic of the teenage dreams of moving on to bigger and better things, with nobody being able to stop you or get in your way. Then it becomes equally heartbreaking once you recall how things do end up in the original. No matter how hard you try to patch things up with David, no matter if you try and help Nathan Prescott, no matter how your relationship is with Rachel, if you've played Life is Strange, you know exactly how all of this will end. Life is strange, but it does make for one hell of a ride. And sometimes, instead of seizing the moment, you just have to accept that the moment will seize you instead. As my good friend Penultimo once said, "Presidente, your people starve! Grow more food, quickly!" Speaking of penultimate, let's take a look at the game that eked out second place with... A good day for a swell battle. And begin! I have no earthly clue as to how anyone would market this game. It's a run-and-gun platformer slash boss rush title with animations inspired heavily by 1930s cartoons, which were all hand-drawn and animated then scanned into the game painstakingly frame by frame. This game has absolutely no right to be as amazing as it is, but it is. First things first, these animations are absolutely gorgeous and can give any animator a run for their money. Second, the designs of the stages and bosses are supremely inspired and greatly show that the devs did their homework. In fact, there have already been multiple videos made showing side-by-side comparisons to the designs from this game and their inspirations. Suffice to say, the resemblance is uncanny. The ragtimey and jazzy soundtrack is extremely catchy and memorable, which is a bonus as it encourages you to continue, even after you have gotten your ass handed to you 836 times. But most impressively, the gameplay is wonderfully smooth and responsive. This always makes the player feel that they may still have a chance in these fights, despite this game being, quite frankly, unnecessarily difficult. Cuphead is a once-in-a-lifetime platformer and an overall delightful experience. I would seriously recommend this game to any gamer regardless of their typical preference. And if anyone should ask you, tell them I got those St. James Infirmary blues. Heidi-ho. And finally, my favorite game of 2017. This is a game that's been making the rounds as one of the best of the year on multiple lists, but rarely is it placed at number 1. Well, for me, it definitely is. In fact, you may have noticed that I didn't bother doing a standard review for this game, and put it straight into my best games I've ever played series. Night in the Woods is not just a video game, it's an experience. Revolving around May, a 20-year-old college dropout who returns to her dead-end hometown due to her personal and mental issues, Night in the Woods creates a surprisingly down-to-earth narrative. Which is bizarre considering the characters are all animals, the art style looks like a pop-up book, and halfway through the game you end up on a ghost hunt. Now don't get me wrong, I love the art, the story is fascinating, and the minigames are an absolute blast, but all of these elements are sort of incidental to the writing. The conversations between the main characters and even the random NPCs. See, that's just it. Until writing that sentence, I never even considered any of the characters in this game as NPCs. That's the beauty of it. This game genuinely creates a living and breathing world with fully three-dimensional people. The girl down the porch that recites cheesy poetry could have been a joke character, but she has a fully fleshed out backstory, and every day I was looking forward to talking to her to see how she was doing. The pastor down at the church could have been used just for moral guidance, but instead she has a side plot of fighting City Hall to provide shelter for a homeless man, and on top of that she even admits to having crises of faith, and in a critical moment in talking with May she straight up doesn't have the answer for her, which leads to an awkward but greatly realistic moment. In fact, once the game does start incorporating eldritch beings and ghost story elements, when you really start breaking down everything that's happened, it's entirely possible that most of these events could have been in May's head. In fact, even if she was right about everything, not a whole lot changes. The town is still dying, she still isn't in college, Bee still runs her father's hardware store, and Angus and Greg are still moving. But that's really life, isn't it? Sometimes there isn't a spectacular happy ending, and at the end of the day, your problems may still exist. But May and her friends all do grow as people. And while it may not count for much, being alive for another day is a decent enough reason to celebrate. I could go on and on about how much I love this game and just how wonderful it is. But seriously, if anything I've said resonates with you on any sort of level, then I would highly recommend checking this game out. Bonus points for the Weird Autumn update, which expands upon the game and story. While reuniting with your best available friends in your dead-end town during a seriously weird autumn, wishing to at least die anywhere else isn't so much to ask. But if you're strong enough to say F fate and forge your own destiny, at least it will have meant something. And at the end of everything, hold on to anything. Thank you so very much for watching, and here's to another year of eDog reviews. So until we meet again, this is eDog saying, I love you all, good night, and good luck.